Hi there, my name is Kelly Roberts, and my paper is on trauma among pastors. We're going to go over the causes, effects, and solutions. As you see, I have my picture down in the lower right-hand side. I do have a tendency of branding everything to be Foursquare because, well, I'm proud to be Foursquare. I'm not going to talk through everything because obviously you do have the paperwork and you can obviously read sides as well. But I will pretty much cover everything that you're used to seeing on there, all right? So as you see, we do have the Foursquare logo flag uh, with a couple of people there. So basically, the introduction. 56% of pastors have considered quitting due to the trauma-induced stress of their job. Since in 2015, the confidence of pastors has steadily declined, reaching its lowest point in 2022. And this is from a Barna Group, 2023. You'll see it on page 8. The purpose of this study is to identify the factors that contribute to the trauma among pastors and to provide strategies and recommendations for addressing the issue. Pastors must be provided with self-care strategies, networking support, and counseling services to prevent risk of trauma that affect their careers, such as pastoral therapy, pastoral networking, uh, education, pastors about secondary trauma caused by empathetically feeling the pain. What that means is that quite often a pastor could be meeting with somebody who maybe has somebody who is telling them about an issue that causes them secondary pain. It's just all part of their job. You'll see this part as Dietrich F. Remy, slide number one. One thing I did want to let you know, Barna is a nationally syndicated research group. I've used them for many advertising agencies, using for healthcare, automotive manufacturers, physical doctors, as well as therapists. So when we mention Barna, we're talking about a specific research. The articles that I have used are articles that use the Barna research. It's about $500 or $600 for the full study, and it does go into great detail, and it goes on a regular basis. So you'll you'll hear about that as we kind of move on. So speaking of moving on, our agenda, we're going to talk about our introduction, literature review, contributing factors of pastoral trauma, strategies and recommendations, statistical data and surveys, conclusion, and the bibliography. So, literature review for this analysis. So, as you know, I do volunteer at the Angelus Temple Archive Department. So I have seen an awful lot of pastoral trauma, not just Sister McPherson. She was a very fragile person who was actually in a wheelchair towards the last of her days. She passed away due to some sleeping medication. Sleeping medication did not cause her death. She also had contracted some liver disease, some liver problems from being in Mexico. That did not cause her death either, but the two together and her sickness did cause her disease. So anyway, I do have an ICFG password. I am able to look at everything, including um, the all paperwork, all doctor work, all doctor notes, everything about Angelus Temple, which, by the way, urban legend, it was not $500,000 to build. It was $1,034,000 to build Angelus Temple, made of concrete and steel. Barna Research, as I mentioned earlier, is a syndicated research. It covers more than just pastoral care. It covers all sorts of things. Um, but basically, we're looking at the pastor's study, especially the one that talks about the thoughts on suicide and self-harm. Those have increased. You'll see that on chart 3, where we're going to talk about pastors' well-being, where chart 1 is going to talk about helpful increases among pastors. And then, obviously, video chart, leading causes for pastoral burnout. I do have Remy Dietrich, and this is an article that you'll see as well. And this is basically how churches can help trauma victims. I did do some personal interview with Jill Turner Foley, and also I had a personal interview with Paul Ajadu, which is also Foursquare people as well that I do run into at the ICFG. So on the introduction, again, I have Sister McPherson up there. This is actually from her house, not the parsonage. After she left the parsonage, she moved into a house that was secluded by bushes. She was not able to have a very much quiet time. In fact, she would, there was no air conditioning when she lived in the parsonage, so she'd sleep with windows open, and people would yell through the window, "Sister McPherson, my daughter's not feeling well, please pray." Sometimes it got so terrible or so difficult that Sister McPherson would sleep in the car. So I thought that was interesting. So you'll see here that there's a high percentage of pastors considering quitting, and that was 56%. Again, we're talking about Barna, but the pastors have considered quitting due to job-related stress. This is basically home life stress, but it's also financial stress. Have to kind of bring in your money, and there's something where pastors feel that they should not be bringing in a lot of money because they're working for the Lord. We do see a decline in pastor confidence. You'll see that in the Barna as well. In 2015, you'll see a chart that kind of charts everything, shows a decline. COVID is in there as well, but it has been on a steady decline since 2015. So pastoral care has been on a decline and has not been something that people have been sought after, unless, of course, they're called. The lowest point, of course, is going to be in 2022, and you will see that in the chart coming up. We do have the study purpose. Okay, so it's to identify the factors contributing to trauma among pastors. If you look on YouTube, you will find pastors who've actually committed suicide, things that were just too terrible for them. I won't mention any of those names because I don't think it's helpful at this particular point. But the goal is to provide strategies, recommendations to resolve the issue. We do want to come up with some preventative measures for pastors, and I'm coming up with self-care strategies. These are, yes, exercise, health, diet, but I'm also looking towards an ability to get together with pastors and to speak with them. Maybe have a network group, things to go on. For somebody who's an alcoholic or somebody who's addicted to drugs, group counseling is probably the one strength. Now, these do not have a negative stigma, but that does not mean that they're immune from having these sort of things coming on. That was the network support. And then secondary trauma education. So, for example, if I were beaten by my pet monkey every 10 days, of course, this is hypothetical, and I have a patient who comes in who has a pet monkey, and he talks about how it beats him regularly, it can cause problems that come up with me. This might be something that maybe formal therapy would be good in talking with. So, these are the impacts on pastors. This photo is from Sister McPherson. It's from her 50th birthday celebration, as I remember. But one of the things that she talks about are the causes of trauma in pastors: high stress, the nature, the pastoral role, numerous demands with limited support. In fact, Sister McPherson said that everybody was walking away hand in hand, and she'd be the last one at home, putting up the ghost light in the theater. So just loneliness comes into place. Um, there are also effects of trauma on pastoral leadership, so impacts on their well-being. Um, Sister McPherson, um, she had the strength of 10 women. That is documented in her book, This Is That. He gave her 10 women's strength to go, but she is human, and she did wear herself down, but she did it all for the Lord. So that makes it seem like it's good, but yet you can't do too much more when you're, you know, not on the earth for the Lord. And then influence on pastor retention. I added that in. I attended Life Bible College in 1985. Three of my roommates went on to be pastors. Three of those pastors are no longer pastors, and they're not even with Foursquare anymore. Two of them are with Episcopalian. Churches were just not run that way. Um, I run things a little differently. I come from very large organizations. I don't think I'll have a problem with that. But these are things that probably could have been handled just a little better. And had there been a little more empowerment on it, maybe just some coaching would have helped. We do have potential solutions for addressing trauma. We're talking about strategies for alleviating the challenges, whether that be groups, clubs, pastor groups, just peer communication. The goal is to have overall pastoral care. Just because a person is a pastor does not mean that they are immune or encompassed by God to have a special touching. And then we do have relevance of trauma today. So there is bivocational pastors, the three pastors that I told you about. Not only are they Episcopalian, one works for an air conditioning company selling air conditioning. One does fountains for large organizations, and the third one does a nonprofit work for Mormonism, to try and keep people out of Mormonism. Unfortunately, to generate an income, he finds old houses, finds people who need help, and he charges to repair their house. So, bivocation is not a bad thing, but it shouldn't be the thing that you have to do to kind of keep things going. And then I'm also putting in there escape routes to affect retention. And that means vacations or delegation. Things like that should be talked about. These are things that I also would talk about when I was vice president at an agency. So here's some historical and contextual factors. Again, you can go ahead and read the capstone on here, but these are just top points I put in slides for here. So historical and contextual factors. So trauma can be manifested as emotional shocks from stressful events or physical injury, and long-term psychological effects such as neurosis. Um, by the time Sister McPherson had passed away, um, she was on medication for the liver disease, but also for sleep disorder because she wasn't sleeping well. Pastoral counseling is, again, follow up, take care of pastors to be sure that they're doing well. And then confidential relationship, which will add complexities. So, being able to be open and free and private with other pastors. And I am thinking outside of Foursquare. Um, I am of the standpoint that anybody who has accepted Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior is my brother and sister, whether or not they have believe in the gifts of the Holy Spirit and follow the secession theory is between them and God. But nonetheless, we still have the goal of reaching people, and that's what's important for me. We do want to talk about the unaddressed pastoral trauma, which is the significant issue with the clergy. You're going to get people who join the group probably perhaps for the wrong reasons. There are assumptions that pastors also are immune to mental health challenges. I know that when I went to therapy, I used to think that my therapist was above everything. Uh, didn't have to deal with any problems. Little did I know later, as we became friends, and I do have friends who are PhDs in psychology. They literally come home and cry because they deal with things that they actually just feel sorry about, but you can't show to your clients. This is a repeat again: bivocational roles, additional stressors such as top church responsibilities. Again, delegation. The reason why I'm putting this here is because I'm not sure we really should have bivocational roles. We're doing this for financial, and money is not the goal for everything, but money is definitely something that you need to live to move forward. And a pastor does not mean he needs to live in the street or live in the family's household, but there should be a way to be able to make a regular livelihood on it. And then, of course, there's the decline in pastoral confidence, which I told you before. So, unheard or pressure of um, unholding perfection. So, what you're seeing here are some pictures that I did pull from the ICFG archives. That is Sister McPherson's castle, also known as Amy's Castle in Lake Elsinore. That was built for her as a place to relax. When Jack Hayford was president, he purchased it back and he would give tours, and he had a couple of people ran it who went through it. Just for the sake of money, they went ahead and it was sold to a lady who is very proud to be living in Sister McPherson's home now, and she likes to liken herself to the wonders of Sister McPherson, and I certainly hope that the Lord uses her that way. So, contributing factors, self harming, and suicide among pastors. Okay, again, this is from Barna Research. So, pastors reports of considering self harm or suicide during the past 12 months. And have you had any thoughts of harming yourselves or taking your own life? So, 1%. That's pretty big. That's 80%. But there's a uh, little tiny percent there that says yes, but they were fleeting and passed quickly. That's your 8%. 9% said, I've had occasional thoughts, but they weren't severe. And one, which is at the 1%, is that yes, I've had frequent and distressing thoughts. That's going to grow. You don't find people who come in with that, start this, and have numbers like that decreasing without getting help. Contributing mental factors, mental illness among pastors. There's a high rate of mental illness. So 59% of pastors, that is, have been diagnosed with mental illness. I have mental illness. Everybody does. Nobody's perfect. So that's okay. And that it will be expected to rise in the future. There is an increase in pastor suicide. Um, there are quite a few YouTube channels about that, where you can read about pastors who have had to deal with pastor suicide. Uh, Reported by Chuck Hannaford from the South Baptist Convention. You'll see that that is in one of the articles. The belief rate of pastors' suicide has increased over 30 years. Um, you would pretty much need God to come down and make a very magic wand to make that 30% change. 30% is a high percentage to reduce. So, for example, if I were going to sell a car, and 30% of the time the people are going to give me the price that I want, that's pretty good. But that's very, very rare. Most people will go 5% under, they'll try to haggle. So this 30% is a conservative number. And when you're starting to apply it in situations for people who have, um, thought about suicide, that number, if anything, is underreported. So this is a very serious topic, and that is expected to rise. The contributing factors in stress and isolation is the immense stress that pastors face. 56% of the pastors cite that stress is the main reason for their ministry. Not stress that, oh, I have to preach, but affects their family and their children. And you've heard of PKs, right? When I was in Bible college, PKs were some of the wildest ones. Well, I won't go into any of the stories, but let's just say that there are a couple that I think probably should have been kicked out of Bible college. um, Stress impacts mental and emotional well-beings. Loneliness and isolation is very large, making up about 43% of pastors who are feeling lonely. And then the loneliness contributes to resignation decisions. Why do you want to be in a job where only 67% of the time you're happy, 43% of the time you're miserable? Yet that's not a healthy thing to do. So, unfortunately, this is a job that only pastors can do, and there needs to be serious pastor reformation on that. And pastors, unfortunately, have the thought that they're perfect, so they don't need this, but they do. Overlap, the stressors basically. Stress and loneliness are interconnected. I told you about Sister McPherson who felt lonely. The other pastors that I had told you who used to be my roommates, their senior pastors felt like they were the senior pastors, they were the junior. You had an idea, tell me about it. If I like it, I'll do it. If not, I'm the senior. Too bad. That's not a good way to run an organization. I ran an advertising agency of 35 people. And if I ran those 35 people like that, I probably would have been fired or let go. So I don't think there's proper education or people motivation skills that have been trained for that. Another thing is the complexity or the nature of the challenges that church leaders face. Um, Derek Prince speaks about being pastor at a church in Northern California. And the senior pastor was married, and a board director, she was married. Well, the senior pastor and his wife divorced, and that board member and his wife divorced, and then the senior pastor's wife and the board member married and continued on the pastorate. Board members left. It basically caused, well, Derek Prince called it bewitching. Who's bewitching you? So there's a lot of things going on. Um, I think there needs to be daily prayer and daily going after this sort of thing. But I don't need to go into that. That's pretty normal. I think you could figure that out as well. Contributing factors and political divisions. So the Barna study findings were conducted in 2022. There's one done in 2023, which is coming up soon, but 2025 is coming out. It's a $500 survey. I do not have that, so I am using older resources. I am using paperwork and articles that do contribute that. Some of the researchers that I did find have not shown any sorts of decline whatsoever. To keep this article or this presentation down to 1 point, I went ahead and just kind of left it at this 1 point. But I did want to let you know these are on a rise. These are not declining. 38% of pastors reported political divisions as a major concern. Political divisions as far as, oh, some have deacons, some have elders, youth pastors, arguments among them. Oh gosh, I have a church over here. The music director and the pastor had a fight. She didn't play the right tune at the right time. I ran into her not too long ago. She hasn't been back to church in 12 years. That's not a good reputation for a church. Pastoral sentiments. So, highlighted evolving challenges. As we end the time, come towards the second coming of Christ, which can never be too soon, that's going to be coming up. And we need to be ready for that. And we need to reflect and polarize our political landscape. We don't want to start running after things that just aren't going to make sense for us in the future. Contributing factors continuing on for pastor resignation rates, 56%. And you'll see this in one of those charts earlier. This is a repeat. Resigned in 22. The confidence is going down 35% and 22% from 51% in 23. That's why that's in there. I did add your 2023 percentage. That was just to show you the decrease on it. And I did want to show you a decrease as well. Pastor satisfaction with their vocational increase from 52% in 2022 to 59% in 2023. So that's a good number. A lot of this could have to do with the COVID going on and new ways of reaching people. One thing to note, COVID was really difficult to people, but I encourage that. Um, Sister McPherson, she went out and she found any way to get the Lord's word out. She purchased the third oldest radio station, and most people did not have radios, and she broadcasted the news. In San Diego, she took a World War II plane because the pilots were allowed to keep their planes. And for $1 for 5 minutes, she flew the plane and she dropped out flyers for the San Diego event. And at that time, people would run out and see what's going on. What happened? There's a plane. And they would read the flyers and went to her thing. Nowadays, of course, you'd be thrown in jail, but those sort of things. So, okay, we have things happening right now going on internet-wise. There's other things coming, and the smarter people will be the ones who find it. Maybe you need to find ways to send people to things. I will be actively looking into chaplaincy programs because there are a lot of people who cannot come. My chaplain program is to um, rock babies who are addicted to medication or don't know anything, and then to visit retirement homes where nobody visits them. There's a very large population of that out where I live. So, strategies for recommendation section, statistical data on pastoral trauma. Sorry, my picture's covering up that little part, but basically these are contributing factors with the problem, and basically they're going to show you statistics. So strategies or recommendations or sections, delegation of tasks. So you see, I have them pointing towards each other. So we have proactive assistance for church leadership. We want to offer help before pastors request it. We want to enhance ministry efficiency through task delegation, giving other people to do things. Example on Moses' delegation in Deuteronomy 1:16 through 17, how he gave things to Miriam and to Aaron and had them basically run their things. Delegation is nothing new. Moses said, I can't speak well. What about Aaron? I don't know if he just didn't feel like do it, whatever. There was delegation. Safeguarding time for spiritual development. So 38% of pastors find it challenging to maintain private time. 3 out of 5 pastors report that significant impact on personal lives. And then closed relationships suffer due to pastoral demands. That's kind of a bummer. Strategies for recommending. So we're going to address internal conflicts. So the importance of good behavior, essential for harmonious communications. Prevent conflicts and disputes. I am a graduate, and I was a teacher too, actually, of Dale Carnegie. So for me, talking to people before there's a problem and encouraging people, very important. Addressing challenges internally, handling issues among yourselves first. That's what needs to be done. And then reduce burden on the pastor. The pastor is just like you and just like me. Analogy of sheep and shepherd. Okay, so sheep rely on their shepherd for guidance. Sheep pretty much do nothing. They follow. They listen to their voice. I didn't realize this. I have a relative who owns 100 acres of land up in Buellton, and I went to go visit them. They had cows, and I went, "Oh, that's great. Let's go see cows." I had a handful of hay, and I went, "Hi, cow, 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 cow," and they ran away. They don't know me. I thought, "Oh, cows eat hay. That's weird." The My uncle-in-law came out. He came out. They recognized him. They came over and they ate the hay. So sheep really do understand their master's voice, and so do cows. Anyway, so that was the analogy. Keep that in mind. You need to be able to be a source of comfort and value to somebody for doing that. Church membership always looks to the pastor for leadership. I once went to a pastor. Now, remember, I'd been through Bible college since, oh gosh, what was it, 1985. But my my church at the time, I won't tell you the name, all the Mercedes parked over there, the BMWs there, and well, a couple of Rolls Royces in the back, and they were very proud of themselves. But they were very much a fashion show and who did what and who went where and all that. And I wasn't very up on it. I did not think that was the way the Lord wanted things. So I started looking for church, and I did find a Pentecostal church. Unfortunately, I found it was a modalist church. Those they don't believe in the Trinity. They actually tried to talk my son into baptizing in the name of Jesus only. Um, I had a big old conniption politely, and we left. Hence, we're over at Angelus Temple. But basically, you really need to know what you're looking for. You need to know what you're looking to do. Look into situations. Find out what you can do and research things and find others, okay? Um, there's some common issues among members, and the common issues are unfortunately gossip and hostile cliques. Um, I speak three languages. I attend a Spanish-speaking church. My wife's Argentinian. I'm French. I can get by with Spanish because a lot of the root words are the same in French. Funny story though, they were talking about how Jesus can wash your fish away. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird. Um, Jesus did have fishermen. They wash your fish away. Okay. Well, all right. I went out in the car about 10 minutes later asking my wife, why did Jesus wash our fish away? My wife laughed probably about a good 10 minutes. It turns out that pescado is a fish who's been fish, and a pensado is a sin. So Jesus washes your sins. So I thought that was funny. So gossip and hostile cliques can be good, not hostile ones. And going over things like that, that's kind of cute and funny. Strategies for recommendations. So here I'm emphasizing mental health. We all have a brain, we all need it. Okay, so mental health is very important. Okay, pastor retention, as I mentioned, it's something that we need to do to maintain our mental health, but it encourages us. It encourages delegation. It helps pastors know that you don't need to know everything. Facilitating conflict resolution. You learn how to bring up problems and challenges in a way that don't start people after each other's throat. I did learn this in Dale Carnegie. I wish I could write better than I speak better than I write, so forgive me if this is not clear on any of this. And then respecting the pastor's time. This is a person who we already know feels over abused, used, bivocational. Their kids are the PKs are out probably out drinking, and a lot of other things are happening. So respect the pastor's time, okay? Allow the pastor to engage in spiritual practices and maybe even be one of their spiritual persons because it's going to be just as good for you as it is going to be for them. And avoid reviewing spiritual practices that could be seen as maybe burdensome. So in conclusion, I put this in because I thought this was scary. Studying suicide rates among pastors. Importance of studying suicide rates. So reveals numerous stories and reflections and highlights in the impacts of affected individuals. There is a YouTube show called De la Fe. In Spanish, it means of the faith. And it's a pastor, and he speaks about um, pastors who have committed suicide. That's going to increase. The enemy is after everybody, especially pastors. Fostering a supportive environment, acknowledging issues is vital, and ensuring well-being of pastors. It's something that you need to do. Now, on this chart, unfortunately, it's hard for you to see here. Go ahead and look at the paper on that, but let me go ahead and bring some of these things out. Again, a little bit of repeating here. Overall health concern, 18% well-being scores for physical well-being for pastors, and their emotional well-being is 19%. They're showing below average ratings for their physical well-being at 11% and their emotional well-being at 14%. Financial well-being, most deficient scoring at 10%. That is very low. When I sold Lexus and Acuras, anything at 10%, we pretty much stopped. That wasn't even worth our time to even make money at. And there is an importance in therapy. We really do need to work on getting therapy for people who need to do this sort of thing. So again, Barna research. I do encourage Life Pacific to subscribe to Barna. This is something that is very important and very big. I just don't have the money to do it. Declining church attendance has gone down 24%, cite pastors. For the stress, again, 56% are having that, 43% are lonely. 38% are showing political divisions among the same church. Oh, well, you're not feeding the homeless. I mean, there's strange things like that, and that's just people are people. 29% of the respondents are saying that this is a huge impact on families, and it's really unclear of the church's direction. 29% are concerned about the future of their church. Is it going to keep going, or is it not? Here's where you can see some of the percentages that were down again. Apologies for the picture there, but you can see it on that chart as well. So this is where we show that in 2015, job satisfaction and high trauma fulfillment were high, and specific ministries did show, confidence, but then the impact of COVID did start to impact things, complexities in monitoring, vocational exploits. Resurgence in confidence in 2023 shows trends observed following the decline in 2022. What you're going to see is this is going to increase. But you're going to run into a new problem. You're going to run into people who are not comfortable around people. You're going to run into people who are going to be watching church on TV, and eventually they're going to run into a situation, well, like if it's my wife, Argentina is playing Brazil. We won't be watching church. I'll be driving somewhere, but she won't be watching church. Summary of findings. Emotional and physical well-beings for pastors. They are at risk because it is a demanding role. I do have a Foursquare logo. This is not specific to just Foursquare. Barna Research did not limit to Foursquare. I'm just a branding kind of guy who puts that in. The misconception is that pastors can manage these problems. They're superhuman. That's a myth. They are just human. In reality, they face similar struggles just like everybody else. And then recommendations for support is please talk about pastoral support for for therapy support for your pastors. I won't read into all of this. You can read it. I would like to expand focus on pastor conferences. There's not as many of those that need to be done. Speaking to some of my pastors' friends, again, 22 years ago, I would have been licensed as a pastor. Very few of those people are still pastors. They want a house. Um, I do also believe that there are instances of tragedy that are happening among pastors. Their children are PKs. There are things going on. Growing up in a fishbowl, being a pastor's kid, you are looked at as being one of the best people in the world. Um, that's not true. That's a very strong thing to put upon people. When I went to Bible college, I know somebody. You know this person, but I don't mention names. I do know a pastor who did get married and had an abortion um, while we were going to church at Life Bible College. So, yeah, there's a lot of things going on. And think it would be, oh, I jumped ahead. Let me go back real quick. One thing that we do need to look at is just when we're looking back at other people, we just need to always take into account all sorts of problems that are happening to people. People are just people. So, in a nutshell, final thoughts on pastoral trauma. There is prevalence among pastors. There are contributing factors to trauma, both inside the church and outside the church. There are effective strategies that we can mitigate these traumas with, and we can always foster positive culture. This is my bibliography. Again, Angelus Temple Archive Department. I do not have a lot of that stuff done, listed. Part of the reason is because I don't have enough paper. I can log in and I can see everything that Sister McPherson wrote, including book drafts, books that haven't even been out. I can listen to every single one of her records. I have recordings of Roberta Semple. I met Dr. McPherson and Roberta and Lorna D personally. All of these things I have drawn in for this. The Barna research, you'll see that listed in the paperwork. Very, very important. And then Remy Diedrich, of course, he's one of the authors, and then some other personal interviews. So these are the people who I went through, and I wanted to thank you so much for giving me this time. Um, I do very good at speaking. I enjoy speaking. I enjoy giving this type of information. So I hope you had as much fun as I did. I uh, I always enjoy talking to people. So God bless. Thank you very much, Doctor. I had a wonderful time in your class. Thank you. Bye bye.